So are we good to go? All right. Hello, my name is Allie from AllisonSpokes.ca. Many of you probably know me from my fairy and fantasy art, but you may not know that I'm also a tarot reader. Some of you might be surprised to hear that I've been reading cards longer than I've been painting fairies. So welcome to my first and what I hope will be a series of interviews with some of my tarot friends whom I have met throughout my tarot journey. Today, I am talking with Toni, a professional tarot reader and owner of Yamala's Moon Tarot Consulting. And she also happens to be my own mother and the woman who introduced me to tarot many, many years ago. So welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm getting this really strange echo. I don't know if you're picking that up, but it was quite a delay.
Oh, no, I am not hearing any echo, but we'll have to watch for that. Okay, so, well, welcome, and thank you for being my first guinea pig and test subject on this interview project that I'm trying to start.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. This is really exciting.
Okay, so first thing I wanted to ask you is how did you get into tarot? Because I have these really fuzzy memories of being a little kid, of you telling fortunes with regular playing cards before you got an official tarot deck. Is that true?
I don't know. I think I did sort of dabble in that for a time when you were a little bit younger.
Yeah.
It's at this point in my life, I'm finding it really, really difficult to remember how I actually discovered the tarot in the first place.
I mean, you must have known about it for a while before taking the plunge, right?
Oh, absolutely, yes. It wasn't until I was 28 years old before I actually got brave enough to go out and buy myself a deck of cards. But I've been curious about it and drawn to it for as long as I can remember.
So when you say that you were brave enough, was that because of dad, or was that because of other people in the community?
No, it wasn't your dad. He just kind of rolled his eyes at me and let me do my own thing. It wasn't a problem. But I think the broader community sort of, that fear of being judged definitely had something to do with that delay.
Yeah. Well, here I mean, if you knew me like 20 years ago, you wouldn't be surprised, and you'd probably know that I read cards because I was reading them that long ago. But anyone who's met me in the last 10 years may not know, because I've been very in the closet about it too, because fear of being judged, especially around all the academics that I hang out with. I kind of kept it very in the closet. So yeah.
But it was your directed studies project in high school.
Yeah, well, high school, yes. If you knew me in high school, if you knew me in college, maybe you wouldn't know. Yeah.
Maybe not.
So, yeah, so you don't remember much about, do you remember what your first deck was and where you got it?
I do remember that. It was, I ordered it online because I didn't want anyone to see me buying them. And I got the deck from an organization in California called Builders of the Adytum. And the deck was just printed on cardstock. And it came with sort of a workbook that guided you to color it yourself. And this is how you were supposed to learn the symbols and the meanings. And I have no idea what happened to that deck.
I kind of remember that. I'm having some flashbacks now.
So I diligently colored all the cards, and that was my first deck, and that's how I started to learn.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I kind of remember that. I do. I still remember the playing cards, though. I'm sure that you were testing it on friends and
maybe a little bit.
Yeah, and I remember being intrigued because I was like, oh, you're taking this ordinary everyday object and turning
I think I got a book from the library on how to read the cards using playing cards.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Okay. So, what do you remember about my introduction to tarot then? Because I was pretty young.
I think my first realization that you were even that interested was your directed studies project, and
really
beautiful deck that you created for that.
But I was say 17, 18, and you purchased a deck for me at age 12.
Did I?
Yeah.
I don't remember that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you did. That's what got
good on me.
Because I remember we were at that little shop in Prince George, that Bell Book and Candle.
Oh yeah, that's when your father wouldn't go in.
He wouldn't go in, and we were looking around, and there was a few objects, and you said, I'm pretty sure you said to me, would you like me to buy you a deck? And I was like, yes, please, yes. And so, yeah, I'm pretty sure I was 12, and then I liked the idea of telling fortunes because I was taking it over to sleepovers. I'd bring my cards at friends' house, and then I would never be invited back by some people. Yeah, no, I had them because Dad was there when I got my deck, so I was 12, and
I'm beginning to have vague recollection of that, but I
still have it.
Time ago. So much has happened since then.
And I still have that deck. Okay. So tell me a little bit about like what kind of reader you are. How do you use the cards for daily life or for your clients or?
I use them in a variety of ways. I have a deck that is just mine for me, and I use that for magic and for meditation and for my own personal readings. And then, but when I'm doing readings for other people, I kind of try to respond to the client. So the readings can be very different client to client. A new client, I tend to keep it very simple.
Right.
I don't know how to describe it.
Do you have a speech that you give a new client?
I do. Yes,
yeah.
I do. I try to make it very clear up front that I'm not a psychic. I don't consider myself a psychic. I don't like that word because of the negative connotations that have become attached to it through popular media. But I consider myself an intuitive reader, and I do let them know that I really can't tell them anything they don't already know.
Right. Yeah.
And that this is an energetic kind of exchange, and their participation is required.
Yeah.
That being said, I start to glaze over because nobody really understands what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So you got to be clear that like you're someone who So I've had some readers that say, don't say anything, just don't say anything. Let me pick up all the energy and tell you. But I'm very much the opposite. I'm like, no, I want you to speak up. I want you to jump in. I want you to, so that I can interpret these symbols more accurately for you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's hard to get some people to engage at that level because they think they're giving everything away and they don't realize that that's not what's happening.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So are you a reader, because there's all kinds of opinions on whether or not you should read reversals or not. So what's your stance on that?
I don't bother with them anymore. I used to. Of course, way back in the beginning, I really tried to follow the instructions and, you know, do it the right way. But after, 26 years of doing this, I've realized that it has to come really from the heart, right? So
Right.
in any card, there is negative and positive, right?
Yeah,
It
maybe
doesn't matter.
maybe I should clarify for people who don't know what reversals are. It's when the card comes up upside down, and some readers will interpret that as a different message than if it came upright. And that's what we mean when we say reversals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't worry about those anymore. In fact, I kind of get annoyed when my cards get mixed up and cards come turn out upside down because it's like you're messing with my rhythm now.
Right.
So I mean, my philosophy is that there's good and bad or negative and positive and everything. And this I don't like making it that black and white.
Mm-hmm.
So I try very hard to, you can often pick up whether or not it's going to go south or not through your interactions with the client. But it also gives me the opportunity to kind of explain or demonstrate that there are choices, right? So going this route could end up this way, going this route could end up going that way. And
Right.
I find it's less shocking for the client as well. I particularly when there's a very strongly messaged image, right? Like the death card or something that comes upside down, and you've got people on the other side of the table gasping, and so but there again, that's one of those cards that people kind of panic about needlessly. But so no, I don't actually consider that.
I do read reversals, but I feel like I could improve on my reversal skills. I know one reader who doesn't look at it as a positive negative way, but more as an internal external. So say if the death card came up reversed, she would interpret that as an internal change versus something more external. So that's one way to do it.
Yeah. And every reader is going to do it the way they're most comfortable.
Right.
And at this point, that's the way I am most comfortable.
Right. It also depends on the deck I use, because some decks were written with the intention of not using reversals. So in that case, I kind of go with the artist's or the writer's intent behind the creation. So when you're doing a reading, do you have favorite spreads? Do you use spreads, or do you just pull up cards until you feel like there's a message there?
I do use spreads, but there are times where it just doesn't feel right to do that. And so it might just be, I might just, spread the cards out and ask the client to just draw a certain number of cards. it's not often that I can wing it like that.
Yeah.
That can be a little bit dangerous, but sometimes that's just the way you're moved to go, right? So I try to do that. I have two spreads that I really like. One is just your basic 5-card spread.
Mm-hmm.
And I read it from the center out. The center card is the core card, so it kind of gives me an idea of those immediate sort of energies that we're working with. And then we have the flanking cards, and those kind of give me an idea of what kind of actions we might want to start to consider. And then the wing cards give me an idea of what sort of outcomes might be manifested through the actions.
So the wing is left and right. Is that?
Yeah, and
so it's like a circle.
It's not a circle. It's kind of in a
oh chevron. Okay, a chevron shape. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and then I realized, this was actually quite recently, that in the course of doing some readings, that the cards on the left side sort of tended to be more right-brained and abstract and creative messages. And the ones on the right were connecting more to the left brain sort of energies. And I found that was really interesting. But it was just something that sort of happened in the midst of a reading, right, and worked really well. And it's tending to repeat itself. And then the other spread that I use is one that I designed, and I call it the Sanctuary spread. And it mimics the very basic shape of a house. So there's a foundation row of 3 cards, and then a second row of 3 cards that are kind of the rooms of the house, and then a 3-card peak with a with kind of an outcome card to finish it off. And I've been working with that for probably about 2 years now, maybe a little bit more.
Okay, interesting. That's kind of neat how it just kind of evolved or manifest. Like you had one intent when you started, but then it kind of became something your own, and that's kind of neat.
Yeah. And I find that this is how the tarot has been since day one, right? Like, just something happens, something clicks, and it's not always something that I intend. It just happens. And so I'm learning to trust that and go with it. Mm-hmm. And good things happen. It's very cool.
So what kind of question, like, not to violate anyone's privacy or something, but just in a big general categorical way, like what kind of questions do you get that you can use that spread to give a really good answer for?
Well, yeah, lots of relationship questions I think are the most common. Money, financial stuff, right? Career stuff. And both of the spreads you can use pretty generally for any kind of a question, but
I'm just thinking for choice, like when you say I don't know which one I should do. Should I stay or should I go? Should I take this job or this job, or
Then I tend towards the 5-card spread. You don't want to get, I don't think it pays to get too detailed and add too much into it. Mm-hmm. If it's a very focused sort of question, the 5-card spread is the best way to go.
Okay. Is there a tarot card that you struggle with more than others, or one that just stumps you every time it comes up?
Yeah, the 3 of Swords.
Really?
card. It's got to be the card that, I shouldn't say I hate that card. That's not true. It just, to me, it's one of the most difficult cards emotionally to deal with.
Yes, as a Cancer.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like I was saying earlier, that there's positive and negative, and things can, that's the one card that it's really hard to pull anything positive out of. I find it really challenging. And
Well, oh yeah. I mean, you could look at it as overcoming disappointment and heartbreak and
yeah, but
loneliness or whatever.
still,
Yeah.
it's just that, oh, that gut wrenching, right?
That's funny.
There's so much suffering in that card, I think.
Yeah, I was expecting an answer from like the major arcana, something, because those archetypes on some level I get them, but it's so hard to apply to someone's life sometimes. Or even the court cards I struggle with sometimes, because I'm like, the outcome is the Knight of Swords. Oh, the outcome is a personality. How do I go with that?
It does depend on the deck a lot.
Yeah.
It's when you, certain decks, the court cards are just baffling because they don't have as much symbolism. There's just this person there. What do you do with it?
Yeah,
right?
and I find that the same with like the Emperor and the Empress and the High, like they're very, they're characters versus situations.
Yeah.
So it's I find I did struggle with the Star until I find actually using different decks, and suddenly you have this aha moment and you're like,
right, yeah,
I get it now. This card makes way more sense in this context than it did in the previous decks. So I've had a few of those. I had with the Star I struggled with, and then I had one of those aha moments when I got this new deck, and I was like, oh, now I get it. Now I get this card. And so there's still a few. I find the Emperor is another one who just eludes me sometimes.
Yeah, I go through that. Even with decks that I'm really familiar with, there'll be days where all of a sudden you look at the card and it's just, there's nothing there. That does happen. That tends to happen more with very character-oriented cards than with cards that are more.
What do you do then when you have a client and you have this blockage and you're like, oh, I'm stumped? Like, you don't want to say that. So how do you deal with those situations? What are some tactics that you use?
Actually, I find being honest is probably the best policy, and just say, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to do with this. There's nothing clear here. Sometimes you can use clarifying cards, like to draw another card, and it just might be that the story is not complete there, so you need to add to it.
Right. Yeah, I do that. Another technique that I've picked up is to just start describing the imagery, and just like, oh, well, there's a knight on a horse, and he's going really fast and he's rushing in, and you just kind of like describe what you see, and then eventually something comes to you like you're babbling.
I find too, sometimes it helps to just go on to the other cards, or go back to the other cards, because there might be something I missed, or if you just go on to something else, it just might be that whatever is there is just hanging back and waiting. And will reveal itself as other things are brought out. So
yeah, and another technique I've picked up on too is, you look at the other cards and look at the what are the similarities? What are the differences? Which way are the characters facing? Are they facing away from the other cards? Are they facing towards? You know, like telling that whole story like that. That there was one, you were doing that Instagram challenge with, like I'm doing as well, and you had that one with the stone circles, and it was just like the three cards just told the perfect story, because there was the Knight of Cups, and then the next card had a stone circle with a man with a cup. So it was like that man had made it to the stone circle, and then in the next card was a stone circle in the background, or there was something like that, where it was just a clear story of the knight kind of inviting you to the stone circle. It was very interesting. Like I've never seen a story so in your face like that before.
I know. I think that's really cool how the interaction between the characters there.
It was literally like turning pages of a picture book. Like you can see,
and that's why I really love that particular deck, because it's like a storybook. It's like this wonderful magical storybook, and the stories just seem to flow from it, and it's that's my very personal deck.
Okay.
I'm thinking that perhaps I should buy another one to do readings with for other people. I mean, I have used it like on occasion to do readings for other people, but it's my deck. So, but it is a.
So are you a very superstitious, like, do you have rituals? Like, do you wrap your cards in silk with crystals and put them, like, do you do things like that?
No, I do cleanse my card. I do smudge them fairly regularly. Okay. But no, I don't, like, I will leave my cards. My cards are out all the time. They're on my person. They're in my purse. They're with me. They're next to me on my nightstand at night. I mean, they're always literally no more than arm's length away, right?
In every room.
And I mean, they become kind of companions. So putting them away just seems like, I don't know, a little disrespectful now. Although the decks that I collect decks, so there are some decks that are very carefully put away so they're not ruined. But my decks that I use every day they're just part of my life. That's my ritual, just having them with me all the time.
So there are a lot of superstitions and a lot of myths about tarot. What do you think is, what myths do you hate the most? Which one do you want to correct and change people's way of thinking?
I don't know. I guess that prevailing idea that some people have, that notion of that, you know, the gypsy fortune teller kind of thing, which, you know, it's charmingly romantic, but it's very, it's also kind of poisonous in the real world.
It sets up an expectation.
Yeah, it does. And you know, I do, even now, even today, I still get the odd client who has this expectation of what I call the tall dark stranger readings, right? And where, you know, that's what they want to hear. A tall dark stranger is going to come sweep you off your feet and take you away, and your life is going to be wonderful and beautiful. And it's like,
when am I gonna get rich?
Good luck with that, right?
And well, is that really a goal that you have? Are you working towards getting filthy rich? Is that something you're doing? No, you're not. Well,
exactly. But, and so I find it sometimes a little bit disappointing almost when I have a client who comes to me with that sort of an expectation, and I don't think I've ever had anybody get really angry with me when I tell them I can't tell you that, because I don't know, that's up to you. We can explore ways that you can help manifest that in your life, absolutely. But you know,
Right.
I don't know if a tall dark stranger is gonna come sweep you off your feet. I'm just, you know, I mean, as a kid, yeah, that whole gypsy fortune teller thing was probably part of the appeal initially, but
Mm-hmm.
I just would like people to, it would be nice for, you know, there, not everybody's like this, of course, but it would be nice that if people took it, I don't want to say take it seriously, but
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to, you don't want to make all your decisions based on what the tarot cards say.
No, you don't.
So it's fun, but it should be also some food for thought that changes your way of thinking or expands your way of thinking or makes you think a little harder. Yeah.
That's kind of what I try to do is give them different perspectives to think about, right? Like,
yeah, some actionables and some advice.
It's kind of a coaching sort of.
It is kind of like more like life coaching. It is.
So you're trying to get them to see that they have the power and they have, you know, the ability to make these choices themselves. And you know, the other thing too is to get people to let go of trying to control other people, right? When you get those questions like, how can I make so and so blah blah blah, right?
Yeah.
What?
Right. Yeah, I've had a few of those. I just tell them like I don't do readings for other people without their permission. And I say you can't control others. You can only control how you react to the situation.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And there are some people who just don't want to hear that, right? And but I will not stoop to telling them what they want to hear just for the sake of a $40 fee. I'm not going to do that. Like, I'd really rather turn them away disappointed and let them keep their money than take their money and
feed them lies.
Feed them lies, right? Like that to me is, again, and I mean, I know there are readers out there who are quite willing to do that, and that gives us a bad name too. So, but you can't control anybody else.
That's right. So I think it's been just about a little over half an hour, so we'll wrap things up. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about your services and what you do?
Well, I am, of course, on Facebook, and my page is called Yabella's Moon Consulting Tarot Services. So I'm easy to find there.
Yeah, well, I'll include all the links in the show notes.
Oh, okay, that would be awesome. Thank you. I don't have a web page, but I'm hoping that in the near future I can get that happening. So they're welcome, of course, to email me at yabellasmoontarot@gmail.com. And my phone number is 780-277-2927.
And you're based in Edmonton. So that's based in Edmonton. If you're in Edmonton, we have a tarot reader for you.
Yes, and I think I just gave you the wrong phone number. It's 722-2927.
Okay. Well, that'll be on your Facebook page, right?
That is on my Facebook page too. And they can also follow me on Twitter.
Okay. And Instagram,
And Instagram. Yes, I'm there on Instagram as well.
So. Okay. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure and interesting conversation. And I hope all people watching found it interesting too. So until next time, hopefully I can recruit a few more friends. I think everyone I talked to was really eager to do this. So we'll do more. And thanks for watching. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.